Do you wish you could get virtual attendees to turn their cameras on? Is engagement the number one issue on your virtual meetings? Do you want your meeting to be the most engaging virtual meeting? Well, welcome to the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. In this podcast, we'll talk to the top people around the world in virtual meetings and give you, the listener, the best ideas to host engaging virtual meetings. Make sure that you click subscribe so you can get the latest episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. Now, let's welcome your host, the author of the #1 Amazon hot new release, Engaging Virtual Meetings, John Chen. It's Friday. Welcome to another episode of Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. This is going to be the special Aloha edition. Today, I'm here with a good friend that I got introduced to by the one Teresa, where we got a chance to work together recently. This gentleman is an auctioneer supreme as well as a philanthropist. And I love some of the family philosophy that he's grown up. Let's introduce the one and only Larry J Snyder. All right, there we go. Hey, Larry, good morning to you here in the Pacific Northwest. How are you doing?
I'm great, John. Thanks. I was looking so forward to this because although we recently met, I feel like we have a whole lot of common threads. So I'm excited to discover some of that. I mean, let's face it, we met and the luau kind of took us on a combined adventure together, but we really, I did my part of it and you did so much of your part of it. And so we had a successful event together, but frankly, never really had a lot of time to share our humanity. So I'm looking forward to that.
Right. You know, in Hawaiian culture, right, it's about talk story. You got to sit down for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Right. And talk story.
Yeah.
So why don't we do this? Let's start off with the easy one, Larry. Take a moment to introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do.
Sure. Most of what I do is to try and make life better for other people. And that shows up in several different ways. I am the product of an extraordinary mother and an accomplished father, and also a grandfather who gave his tribe a lot to celebrate. And so that's really what I do. I get out of bed every day to try and make life better for other people. And I was taught quite a ways back that the joy goes to the giver. So literally, the more I have an opportunity to elevate others, the more my own humanity gets improved too. So that's who I am.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Larry. I think you also said that you are not bystanders, right? That's really led you to this thing. So let's talk about the idea for this luau. It was the Love Lahaina Luau. Larry's famous quote is, "Don't try and put a fundraiser together in 10 days unless you have some really good friends around." So Larry, where did the genesis of this idea come from?
My parents, the spirit of my parents lives in Lahaina. Our best family memories are literally all from either there or 25 miles up Lake Chelan. And so when the fire happened, I really took that super personally, that so many people's lives were affected in such a tragic way, but also that what was eliminated was kind of the physical reminders of those memories. And I really believed that, again, I was being called by my parents to help other people. I have this little voice in my head literally every day that is that of my mother that says, "Someone needs your help now." And that's really it was screaming very loud watching Lahaina burn. So that's really the genesis. And then, as you know, in events, you got to have a place, you have to have somebody to cook great food, and then you have to have an audience. And so I just went to work. As you said, it's the dumbest thing you can do is try and put together an event in 10 days. But we did it, and it's because of friends like you, and I mean that sincerely, that came forward, as well as Loom from Mojitos and Amir from X Stadium, the club that we held the luau at, as well as auction donors and attendees and people that couldn't come that said, here's my several hundred or thousands dollars. I want my treasure to count towards this. So that's the answer to your question.
Larry, you've made a lot of relationships, maybe through your business, maybe just through who you are. How did you get to know Loom and Amir, two of, our small business leaders here in Seattle? Again, Loom owns the restaurant Mojito that I believe is in Lake City Way, if I remember correctly. He
Mhm.
also just had a new television article about him, which was fantastic. And of course, Amir owns X Stadium. How did you get to know those two?
About 5 years ago, I was asked to join a volunteer team to put on Thanksgiving for All, and that's for 500 people that live in Seattle Housing Authority housing in various parts of Belltown and the North End, and they all come to one central place for a traditional Thanksgiving meal. And so there's about probably 20 of us now that just jump at this chance to work with 3 or 4 chefs, including Chef Loom, and they just pretty much tell us what to do, and we make gallons and gallons of potatoes, or mashed potatoes and gravy and beans. And last year, I think we cooked 40 turkeys, 40
Wow.
large turkeys, and so
Wow.
that took about 24 hours of work. And then it all gets put into these big hot boxes to stay moist and warm, and
Yep.
then transported to wherever we're doing it. Last year it was at X Stadium. The year before that it was at a club down in Belltown. So those guys, they pretty much, like I said, tell us what to do. We serve pecan and pumpkin pie. We have drinks. A number of sports celebrities bring clothing to give away. I am kind of known as the sock guy. I've been collecting socks through my association with Starbucks for the last dozen years, and so I usually bring 5 or 10,000 pairs of socks, and it's a true Thanksgiving. And again, as I mentioned before, and you'll hear this a lot from me, the joy goes to the giver. The person who is doing the giving experiences the joy of doing it. And I've been able to attract a number of friends who have caught that same spirit, and it's meaningful to us. We do this because we want to experience that joy.
Yeah, you of course may know, Larry, that I spent a lot of time with Tony Robbins, and so I've done a lot of his leadership programs, and I've volunteered at a number of his programs, and so we've been involved. I probably did his basket brigade here in Seattle
Yeah,
for over a decade, where the theory was is that the story goes Tony Robbins actually received a basket from his family, and the person said, "Hey, I'm just a delivery person," because his dad tried to give it back. He was trying to be too proud, right, to
right.
take it, even though they really needed it. And he never forgot that. And so every Thanksgiving around the world, they feed some multi-millions of people. And here in Seattle, we led the Basket Brigade, feeding 400 to 800 every year. And
Yeah,
then I get a call from the foundation one year, and they said, "Hey, John, could you handle Tony coming visit Seattle in 4 days?"
wow.
Right? And there's no prep. We have
Right,
nothing. We have no
right. It's
budget,
like the
by the way.
president coming to town,
Yeah, we
right?
got a building. We got 400 people to show up. Everyone
Jeez.
showed up committed to buy at least a $50 basket of
Yeah,
food and deliver it to a family. All we did was get family names,
yeah.
right, from agencies who would allowed us to, come and deliver to them.
And
And
this
then
is four
Tony
days.
Robbins showed up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
four
in four.
days.
Oh my gosh.
We fed 1,600 people in
Good
four
job.
days, and
Congratulations.
the people who did that were treated to Tony Robbins giving a private talk for 2 hours to them that
Wow.
just blew their minds. The highlight of it was I am really thankful for a lot of the work he's done with me and for me
Yeah,
that we got to pay him back. 400 people turned over a piece of paper. Turns out that Tony Robbins' favorite song is Amazing Grace. So
yeah,
400 people sang him Amazing Grace at the end of it, and he cried. Right.
yeah. Well, that's a huge blessing on those people and yourself. We are so fortunate in the United States of America to have everything that we possibly need and so much more. But there are times when we don't, and it is that spirit of service that, and again, you have to have people that will accept it. And there's so much pride involved that once people do receive it and realize that they need it, so they receive it, I think there's kind of this automatic thing in their mind that says, you know what, when I'm back on my feet, I'm going to give back. And I've seen that in so many places here in the United States, a little bit of it abroad, but it seems to be very much an American spirit that we serve each other. And I love that. That's my mom speaking, directly into my heart. And that's really, again, why I get out of bed every day, is to answer the call from her.
So I guess you specialize in giving too. You're an auctioneer and you get to help other people, in that joy of giving. I did call that too. I called that basket brigade is what I called a gateway giving event. And what I
Yeah.
meant for it is a lot of times it's somebody's first experience in giving, and ideally they should recognize that they should get hooked on it and get addicted to it, right? So it's the gateway giving event.
Yeah.
When did you realize or starting wanted to become an auctioneer, and what happened along that path, Larry, about becoming an auctioneer?
Well, I think it's important to know what Larry the auctioneer. This is Larry the auctioneer right here.
Oh, I love you have a cardboard cutout. That's genius.
Yes. So I just don't want. I want you to know that there's me, and then there's Larry the auctioneer. So anyway, um, I was invited to a charity auction. I'd never been to one in the early '90s, and it was at the Spanish Ballroom. And my parents had told me about the Spanish Ballroom at what is now the Fairmont Olympic Hotel. And so this friend who was a member of the media said, do you have a tuxedo? And I said, oh, I don't have a tuxedo. And they said, okay, we're going to rent one for you. So they rented me a tuxedo. I show up at the Fairmont Hotel and go to the Spanish Ballroom, and I look around, and I've never seen anything like this before. This magnificent room, all of these beautiful people. And it happened to be an event that Merrill Lynch was sponsoring for the United States Olympic Committee. And one of the first people I ran into was a mutual friend from the south end of Seattle, named Tom Hewling. His family owned a number of auto dealerships at the time. And anyway, he was a big fan of boxing. He was an amateur boxer himself. So he said, hey, Larry, and he was a big sponsor of the event. He says, Larry, I want you to meet a friend of mine. Follow me. So we go over to the elevator, go up, go around a corner. There's a long line of people waiting to walk into this room. He just walks around all those people, says, keep following me. We go over to the corner, and he walks right around just all of these people that are standing there around a seated person. And he says, Larry, I want you to meet my friend Muhammad Ali. And I said, nice to meet you, Mr. Ali.
Wow.
Anyway, so Muhammad Ali was one of 12 gold medalists that was at this event. I'm a former hockey player. Michael Ruzioni was there from the Miracle on Ice. Bob Beeman was there. Rosalind Sumners was there. And so I totally was mesmerized by this whole thing in the first 10 minutes that I was there. And then they asked me to stand next to the auctioneer during the auction and hold the artwork and the auction items.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I looked out, and here's all these beautiful people eating this wonderful meal, giving all this discretionary giving. And I just was blown away by this whole thing. And so after the event was over, I had a short conversation with the auctioneer, who was a two-time world champion auctioneer named Jeff Stokes. And I said, I would love to have lunch with you. I have 1,000 questions. And he said, sure. So we had lunch, and he said, I can't, first of all, if you want to come and volunteer at my events, no problem. He said, but if you want to become an auctioneer, you have to go to auction college. All the people that work for me, including myself, go to auction college. So I said, tell me about it. He says, well, you're going to go spend some time in Billings, Montana. Have you ever been to Billings, Montana? I said, no. Anyway, so, fast forward a number of years, I was still in my first career, which I grew up in the home furnishings business with my grandfather and my father. And so I was kind of in the last sunset years of that, even at 36 years old. And then finally I did it. I went to auction college, got the degree, got the diploma, which enabled me to get a license from the state of Washington and a bond. I had to be a surety bond bonded, and that's how I became an auctioneer. And then I started, like everybody else, doing school auctions, PTA auctions, and then it just took off from there. And I have a particular affinity for international work, and that's really the focus of. I still am about 60% domestic, 40% international now.
Hmm. Wow. So you're saying that international, you fly to some charity dinner or auction in some other country, come in and be able to run that dinner.
So actually, it's just the opposite. So I take on projects in faraway places, but the funding is raised here, and
Oh,
that's where the
oh,
hands-on philanthropy in my world comes from. So I am literally the hands-on philanthropist that finds the cause, or the cause finds me, and then I find the donors, and the donors fund the cause at an event. So that event could take place in Seattle,
okay.
Portland, San Francisco, or Los Angeles. Those are the four cities that I work in.
Here's one of my best fundraising stories. Talk about like starstruck. We went to New Zealand.
Ah,
Right. And if you haven't known, some of my career is that I have 5 attempts on Rainier, 3 summits, 1 summit on Denali
yeah.
in Alaska. And I was also part of a mountaineering nonprofit board for a museum they were working on here in Washington State. And during the break, somebody said, "Hey, what are you doing this summer?" And I said, "I'm going to New Zealand." And we're talking like one of the Whitakers, like one of the first on
Yeah.
Everest. Goes, "You're going to New Zealand. You need to call Sir Edmund Hillary."
Oh, yes.
And I'm like, "Oh, right. Like his phone number's in the phone book." And he goes, "Actually, it is." So if you look up in the white pages, right, at the time, you could see Sir Edmund Hillary's phone number. So I tried to call from the States and I didn't make it. But we went to Auckland, and while we were there, we're in an exhibit, and it was an exhibit about Sir Edmund Hillary's life from becoming a beekeeper to becoming not only the first to summit Everest, but an ambassador for New Zealand. It literally changed his life. And so my friend who was with me going, "You need to call him at least one more time, right? You will kick
Yeah.
yourself if you don't try." So we got a calling card, pick up the phone, and all of a sudden it's hello. And we're like all falling over each other. You know, "Hi, Sir Edmund Hillary. This is John Chen, the Whitakers from the United States, and
Yeah.
come and visit you." And he goes, "Well, today's not good, but how about tomorrow?"
You're like, I'm available.
Yeah. So we got to personally meet Sir Edmund Hillary
That's
in his
great.
basement. And the reason why I'm sharing this story is because we asked you, of course, one of the questions you might to think about asking is like, what's the greatest thing you think that you've done? And he goes, of course, it's not summiting Everest. He goes, the more and more I really fell in love with the Sherpa people, the more and more
Yeah.
I discovered how much they needed help. Right. And then one day I asked them, I said, "What do you need?" And they're like, "We need water. We need schools, right? We need roads." So he went out for every year, did a dinner in San Francisco and fundraised $500,000 a
Wow.
year and brought them water, brought them schools, and eventually they were able to fund the first 747 pilot who was flying all the climbers over and the first Sherpa doctor.
That's great. That's fantastic.
And I love
Well,
that part. And I said, "Where did this idea come from?" And he just laughed and he looked at me and he goes, "It was my idea." It was such a great, so humble, but
yeah.
yeah, such a Kiwi, such an amazing
Yeah.
human being and soul that was inside of there. So,
Well, the thing that you said that's probably people that haven't necessarily seen philanthropy in action in other parts of the world, $500,000 of US dollars in Nepal is probably $5 million here or
yeah.
more. And that's the power of money. I spend a lot of time talking to anyone that will listen, frankly, about the power of money. The value of money is easy to understand here in the United States, but the power of money in places like Sierra Leone or Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, or Uganda or Rwanda, or any of these other places in Southeast Asia, it's mind blowing, because what we can do with $100,000 in sub-Saharan Africa is just ridiculous compared to what we can do here. So I spend a lot of time, again, talking to anyone that will listen about the power of money in other places.
Yeah, that's great because my grandparents, on my mom's side, they grew up here in America basically with a third grade education. They were gardeners, and then they owned a grocery store.
Yeah.
And before they passed away, they ended up buying two properties that took all the rent, and they're spending off all that money. They were able to, let's see, my uncle would, and the rest of the family members. My mom is one of five brothers and sisters.
Hmm.
They would take that money and plan trips, and they would fund projects back in the village where he grew up. And so, the 100 grand or so, or whatever, like 10 grand buys a senior citizen center,
Right.
right, in that village. And so they were able to fund a kindergarten, a senior citizen center. They sponsor the top dragon dance team in the area. And so there's all these things that someone who have very humble means, if you worked hard and figured out ways to give away some of your money, had a huge impact. And let me just tell you this, Larry, why it's such a big deal. I took my kids back, right? So we did kind of like the roots trip. We took them to the village where they came back. And I don't think my kids have still stopped to this day. It impacted me so much. When we come to the two villages, one where my grandfather was and one where my grandmother was born and raised, the whole town comes out.
Of course. Yeah.
He's like a hometown hero. So they celebrate us like we won the Olympics, like we
Right.
have gold medals around. And it's so amazing. And my kids would have never realized that, without going on that trip. And the
Yeah.
best part about it is that they keep this story about him going on, and that's like one of the key ways. So, Larry, out of all the stuff that you've had, what's kind of one of the greatest philanthropic or auctioneer giving stories that you have? I know we already worked on Lahaina. I don't know if there's
Yeah.
anything else that you have on that you like to share.
Um, After my mom left us after a protracted path from vascular dementia, my family and I, so I have five sisters, and I and my father started sharing ideas about what would be that perfect way to remember my mother. And
Mm.
several ideas came up. Her and my sisters ran preschools and daycare centers, and on the paternal side of my family, we were in the furniture business. So my very entrepreneurial family growing up. We didn't call it that. We probably couldn't even spell it back then. But anyway, um, an idea came forward from a very small village in the eastern part of Sierra Leone, and they had been praying for 10 years for a school. They had a mud hut school, and it really wasn't a school at all. Got wiped out by the weather. And I happened to, on a delegation visit, just as like a very last minute stop on the way back to Freetown, uh, the Honorable Joseph Lamine took us to this village called Sulehun.
Mm.
And we sat in the plastic chairs in the ridiculous sun, under this thatched kind of ramshackle community gathering spot. And they told him that the only thing holding back their children from life itself was the ability to learn how to read. And
Yeah.
I thought to myself, and remember, this is all being double translated back to me, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't speak English, but that's one of the goals of the schools, is to speak English. They don't, so they don't speak necessarily the national language. They speak a tribal language. So you've got, they're conversing with Joseph, who's conversing with someone else that's then spitting it back to me in English, and then I'm saying what I'm saying, and it's going back the reverse. Anyway, so I got that stuck in my head, that was something that would never leave my mind, this whole idea of these kids learning how to read. And that's what my mother did. She taught kids how to read.
Oh,
So anyway, I'm
yeah.
on my way. Back to. I was actually going to Rome at the time for another adventure I'm involved in, and the plane was just about to take off, and I looked at that that terminal, that's broken down terminal at in Freetown, one last time as the plane turned, and I thought, bang, that's it. I'm supposed to build a school. That's what I'm supposed to do. And I'm supposed to put my mother's name on it. So anyway, that kind of went into the back of my mind. And then on a subsequent trip, I was asked a question by a little girl. in the middle of a field, and who spoke very, very limited amount of English and was with such a thick West African accent. So I kind of bent down, and she was looking at the back of my camera. I had taken a picture of her and her three friends. And she said to me, she said, looking at the camera, she said, "Which one am I?" She had never seen a reflection of herself before. She'd never seen a picture of herself before.
Right.
And so that just got imprinted like a tattoo on my brain, and I couldn't unthink that question. And so the answer to your original question is, which one am I? I am the one for whom asked 60 of our friends and family to build a school and dedicate it to my mother, of which I got to go back. And when you talked about the village coming out and welcoming you, this was 1,000 people that welcomed me, and this delegation, as well as the U.S. ambassador to Sierra Leone, actually came for this opening. It was the first time that had ever happened.
Wow.
And it was one of the most important, not just moments of my life, but it's like the most important way that we could have remembered my mother is to teach children how to read. So.
Oh, what a beautiful story. Here on this coffee cup here too. This is my mom, who was also, has passed away.
Yeah,
Right. And
yeah,
it's
she's with you every day.
yeah, she's the one who installed a lot of these values with
Yeah.
us. I want to give a shout out to Rob Hamilton in Oregon, Mohammed Matley, who just shared a lot of his life story recently in a keynote we're working on, and Ree Duong, who is a relationship coach who helps get people together. Larry, on the engagement side, right, you spend a lifetime trying to engage people to give money. I'd love to hear some of your favorite engagement tips as an auctioneer.
Sure.
Right. I've been studying auctioneers for years.
Yeah.
I've got a chance to do some charity auctioneer, not professional auctioneering
Sure.
in some other cases. I'd love to hear what are some of the best things that you see work with people in terms of engaging them throughout the night.
The first thing is making sure that you have designed an event that every dollar counts. So first of all, whether someone walks in the door with $500, 5,000 or $50,000, you have to you have to design an event. And I work a lot on consulting, probably 80% of my time's on consulting.
Right.
And you have to design an event that definitely makes sure that you have created an event for everyone. And now, having said that, there are several ways that you can do that. Number one is, some people like, it's called reception fundraising, whether it's a silent auction or a raffle or some other game of chance, that again, that $50 matters. Because it's not $50, it's 50 times 500 people matters. And so I think the mindset of going into these events with the making sure that, again, every dollar counts and that everyone has been engaged. The other thing that I love probably the most of everything with respect to reception fundraising is called Marketplace. And that was shown to me by two women who were going on a one of those fancy safaris in Tanzania, and two gals from Silicon Valley. And it was going to be their trip of a lifetime. And someone right before they left said, "Hey, take some pencils and paper. We might stop by a school on the way out to the Serengeti, da da da." Anyway, so they stopped there, and it was this horrible, broken down school right next to the highway. Just, it couldn't have been in a more dangerous situation. And here's these 100 kids all jammed in this little building. Anyway, so these two who had the means to make it happen, they dropped off their pencils and papers, looked around at the property, got as much information as they could. They were not on a philanthropic safari. They were there to go have a fancy safari. Anyway, the gal told Casey, it was one of the gals' names, she said it was the worst experience of our life to go on this high end, really over the top safari, because all we could think about were those kids jammed in that little building right next to the highway. By the time they got home back to Silicon Valley, they had founded a cause. They had, literally, they spent the whole time on the safari figuring out how they were going to take care of those 100 kids.
Yeah.
And anyway, so one of the things they did, they asked me to host this event down in San Jose. Is they set up this marketplace where when you walked in the door, you were given this piece of paper that was a shopping list, and you got to buy school supplies, nutritional food, health and wellness, like 25, 50, $100 at a time. And it was a big display. And so I tried to adapt that to as many causes as possible, to have that instead of a silent auction, to have a big display, marketplace display, because most of the time people are bidding on things they don't really want. So what this is direct giving is what it is. It happens to be tax deductible too. So anyway, the marketplace is one engagement tool that I really like. I probably do it 50% of the time. I host about 45 events a year. And so about half of the time, and it doesn't just have to be Africa. I've done it for addiction recovery organizations, homelessness organizations. Just think about it. Just every cause has specific needs. And so if I can get leaders to think outside the box, in other words, event producers or directors or development departments to think outside the box, every one of them that have done this have never gone back to their traditional way that they've done things before, because of the engagement that that this marketplace does for donors. And it also is a really good place to enhance opportunities for new board members, new donors. There's just so many benefits to doing it.
Let me make sure I understand this. So in the marketplace, like you put out all the items that the school would need, like instead of the silent auction, saying when you bid on this, you actually just bought 10 books, a desk, right, a wall, a roof, right, water,
Yeah,
things like that. And that, yeah. So people, what's great about that too is that often nonprofits need to educate their donors all the time about and they also donors want to know, where does my money go? And so
exactly.
they can actually allocate to that. Oh, that's a fascinating. I
Called
have not seen that in any of my
It's called
auctions, Larry.
Marketplace. Well, you need to come to one of these. I will definitely invite you because I want you to see it. There's there's a movie coming out called Uncharitable. You may have seen some of the promos for it. Dan Pallotta and Charity Water and a number of others are featured in it. And this is what these guys are talking about, is that the model of philanthropy is frankly broken, because it's like we have for business, we have one where there's, yeah, exactly, where there's like unlimited amounts of budget. Nobody questions spending. Thank you. And then you have the nonprofit sector where everybody's all focused on, oh my gosh, you spent 21 cents to make a dollar. Well, guess what? It's not about the amount of money that you spend. It's about the impact. If we could just measure the effect of nonprofits based on how many human beings they rescue or save or create wellness for, and less on the dollars and cents. But that's a mind shift, John. That's a completely different way of thinking. But I think this movie, as long as it gets traction when it's released here in a week or so, it will send the message that I've been preaching for years, but nobody's, I'm one guy, right? But and again, most people think a certain way, and coming into a board meeting and preaching a completely different mindset is pretty much, they just can't wait till I stop talking to get rid of me.
Well, like virtual meetings, right? I've been talking around virtual meetings for 35 years. No one was interested until of March 2020.
Believe me, I remember.
Suddenly
Yeah.
everyone was interested. Larry, what did you do during the pandemic, right?
Well,
Did you
I'm
do
really
some
glad that you brought that up, because I
Yeah,
was hoping we would have a conversation about that.
yeah,
So frankly, I was really scared. I have made my living, and also kind of my identity is around live events. Where
absolutely.
my energy comes from, it's where my relationships belong, and it's just what I love doing. And it took a long time to get good at it, I guess, and become, study the masters of it, and also try and create my own identity and not be like other people.
Yes,
So anyway, when coronavirus came, and I saw it coming, because as you know, I have an association to Starbucks, and my 3 days a week at Starbucks, which I've been doing for almost 20 years, That came to an end also because the office tower store that I was working at 3 days a week in downtown Bellevue was gone. They shut them all down.
Shut them
And
all down.
so I was fortunate that Starbucks, because of my tenure, gave me an LOA, a leave of absence, and that was company sponsored. So they paid for my benefits while I was gone, and that's all I was asking for anyway. Anyway, I moved to Chelan, and for maybe your viewers that don't know, Chelan is kind of a playground for people from Western Washington. And my brother from another mother has this little store 25 miles up lake, and all COVID was happening in sincere fashion on Western Washington, and in Eastern Washington it was like, mask, who wears a mask? Right? Anyway, so 25 miles up lake is this little store, and so I got to spend 120 days working in this little store during the summer. It was the time of my life, but I still had a number of groups that said, we still want to host an event, but we're going to do it on this platform called Zoom. Do you know about Zoom, Larry? And I said, I know about Zoom, but I haven't spent a lot of time on Zoom. And I'm imagining, how the heck am I going to do an auction on Zoom? But you know what? My favorite word is yes. So we'll figure this out. And so what we did was they, as you know, sent out all these links and said, just come. We're not going to do, it's not going to be an hour. It's not going to be 3 hours long like a normal event. It's going to be 45 minutes. We're going to have the executive director come on the screen and talk. We're going to have, we might even have a musician come and play. We might, whatever we're doing, that's what we're doing. So the first, let me tell you, the first few were really rough because, and I have to tell you a funny story, and it's not, it wasn't funny at the time, but trying to get people to mute, because those first few times it was right. The main thing was we couldn't get the stupid dog to stop barking in the background, or somebody's TV was on, or it was like, because the other thing we didn't know is we didn't have John Chen, so we didn't have somebody knowing how to mute everyone except the person talking, right? Anyway, those first few were just horrible, but it worked, and they raised money. And all I figured out was how to use the chat box. I just kept putting the link. Here's where the donations go. Here's where the donations go. Here's what... Anyway, the only reason why they raised money is because Larry kept copying, pasting the link into the chat box. But the whole thing about the mute was just a disaster, the first few of them. But once we figured it out, and then once people like you came into our lives and said, I'll do this, you guys just show up and do your part, I'll be the Wizard of Oz in the background. And praise the Lord for you, because again, without event producers, we just really would have been a disaster, because most auctioneers are not trained broadcasters. We did not go to broadcast school. We are not technology. If you haven't, John knows this more than anybody, that that I'm really good at a few things and others not good at all. And so I really rely on and am humbled by professionals like yourself, John, that again give us that that competitive edge, is what it really is, to put on virtual events. And so it was really it wasn't a learning curve. It was more like a rocket ship trying to adapt to this, because some groups had they had tech people, but they were using platforms that I wasn't familiar with. And so I just, again, really leaned hard into event producers like yourself that allowed us to be who we were in a camera setting. And the only thing that I really never got super used to was having someone speaking in my ear while I was trying to talk. That because that's a learned skill, right? That's what broadcasters learn. That's why they go to school for 4 years, is to not have this screw up their train of thought. And so in my opinion, COVID ended at the right time because I didn't want to do that anymore anyway. But I still see the value in what we're doing online. In fact, more so like I think that 60% of the fundraising success for the luau I owe to you, because you gave people a chance to attend that event, which it 3x our attendance, but it also 3x our giving. And so yeah, the virtual meetings and virtual events, I think, are here to stay. I think hybrid events are even better because some people want to come to the event, but then you can spread out, obviously, the audience to a much wider geographic area.
Yeah, you really, in a hybrid event, if you do it right,
Mm-hmm.
you get the energy of the in-person, which was certainly there,
Yeah.
right? We auctioned off a Lamborghini. If you did
Yeah.
missed it, by the way, I put the links inside of here. You
Okay.
can see the two news articles, right? As well as the entire production was there. And by the way, Teresa, who put us together, is now watching online on
Oh my
Facebook.
gosh. Hi,
Teresa.
Trace.
There we go. So, and then the second part is that, yeah, we doubled and tripled the audience. And
Yeah.
and really what mattered around that is that the opportunity to give is just there. It's one click away.
Yeah.
And so your cut and paste method, right, is really the key. We showed it a lot. We kept showing the key.
Yeah.
I was posting on my side, and I think that was the key to it, is that we took an event, right, and then added this next magnitude on it, and that's where technology can really
Yep.
bring us to. When we get it done right, Larry. Now that you've been in the seat and you've seen what it can do, what do you think is the future? Right, the future of virtual and hybrid and all the other things going forward. I'm just curious to see what you see from
Well, first of all, hybrid events are probably the greatest things that's happened to events in my lifetime. And I mean that sincerely, because of being able to spread that audience and being able to not rely on filling a room full of people for the sake of filling a room full of people.
And
Now
wait, I got to add in here, Larry.
Yeah.
Some of your friends bought tickets and told you straight up, we're not coming. I'm just buying the ticket to help you.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. No, and we actually, I'm going to think 35 or 40% of the people bought tickets because they wanted to help the cause. I learned a lot from the luau, John. I learned a lot from you. I learned a lot from I've done disaster relief work before, but it's been different than that. I worked on the typhoon in the Philippines, also Airlift Japan for after that, the tsunami. I worked on the floods in Houston. I don't know if you remember that. And you know what we did in there was we found out that the number one thing that got ruined in the nonprofit, a lot of the nonprofits in Houston are kind of located in the same area.
Yeah.
And that the flooding was really bad there. Do you know what the number one thing that got ruined there was?
I don't know.
Diapers.
Oh, because they absorbed and then they're done.
Well,
right?
no, because people store them on the floor. And here comes the water, and then they're ruined, right? So anyway, this friend of mine, a friend of a friend, said, "Hey, do you think you could do a diaper roundup?" And I said,
Yeah.
"Of course I can do a diaper roundup. My favorite word is yes." So anyway, I asked Starbucks, "Look, would you let me collect diapers here at the store for a week?" And they said, "Why wouldn't we?" Anyway, we ended up sending 25,000 diapers to Houston. With a big donation of shoes from Brooks. So they all kind of went in the same truck.
I'm a big Brooks fan. That's the only shoe I wear.
Yeah. But my point here is that disaster relief work is really, people want to help. You just have to give them an opportunity. And that's what the luau was. We provided a ticket that was a reasonable amount, $50 ticket. Loom cooked an awesome meal that you didn't get to eat, and I feel bad. I owe you lunch and dinner. And then we had a beautiful place that you transformed, and it was the perfect situation, right? And then we had 6 or 7 nice live auction items and a chance for people to give, and a raffle too. And it was perfect. And do you remember what happened with the raffle, the money we gave away?
Oh, you raffled cash. You re-raffled cash,
Yes.
Larry.
Hopefully, nobody from the Federal Reserve is watching this. But what happened was, the deal was that if you bought a $25 raffle ticket, you got a chance to win $500 in cash.
Hmm.
And so what we did was we gave away, I think it was $300 and then $100 and then 100 or 200, whatever it was. And everybody gave the money back. They gave it back because they wanted to go to the cause. And I'm like, this is an auction item. So I sold the cash.
You sold like $500 for like $550 or something. It was
No, it
crazy.
actually ended up being $800.
Oh
we
yeah, it's
sold-
800. I
we
didn't hear
sold
that.
$500 for $800. Anyway, um, so
It was great.
but more importantly, people once again got the joy of giving it back, right? Remember, the joy goes to the giver, and it will always be that way. And you asked the question of, what do I love about engagement? That's one of them, is trying to find ways to give people to get what they want, but then be able to give it back. And someday when we have more time, I'll tell you the story about the angry rooster. We don't have time now, but
well, we'll bring you back for that, Larry. Well, here in the closing part, if people who are listening to this, like Teresa, if you want them to remember only one thing, what's the one thing you want them to remember, Larry?
everybody can make a difference. Just do it.
Outstanding. Larry J. Snyder, hands-on philanthropist. I can tell you he's literally hands-on. He was in that kitchen making food with Loom, and then came out and led this whole affair. So Larry, so great to meet
Thank
you.
you.
So great to talk a little story here today. And again, you can still give. The links are on there to the Maui Food Bank and Maui Strong, both which will need your support for a good time going forward. Thanks again, Larry.
Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, everyone.
There we go. Have a great one. We've just been talking with the hands-on philanthropist and auctioneer, Larry J. Snyder, right? Here's the quote I'm going to leave you with. My favorite word is yes, right? The favorite word is yes. And if you want to say yes, feel free to subscribe, share, like, or comment here. Thanks for everybody who has been watching. Rob, Mohammed, Trace's here, and many others. Thank you so much for that. By the way, if you also want to say yes, the Engaging Conference, this is my give, on October 23rd through 25th, we're going to show you the secrets of planning engagement. I might have to build a marketplace now. You can get a free ticket here at engagingvirtualmeetings.com/CON for conference. There's a free ticket and there's a $197 VIP upgrade, and you'll get to meet all these amazing people. We have a total of 10 speakers, which if you include myself, the VIP package includes this amazing package. Plus the number one thing, Larry, you're going to love about this, email and text access to me. Yesterday, my good friend Rick Altman solved another 6-hour challenge by calling me. We solved it in 3 minutes. That might be the whole value right there. If you want to subscribe to this podcast, go to engagingvirtualmeetings.online. Subscribe on your favorite one of 13 platforms. And if you want to be the next person who wants to be interviewed here on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast, just go to this link, engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet, and select interview, and you too could be the next guest like Larry J. Snyder. Thank you so much. This is John Chen. Have a great weekend. Think about how you can give back next. I'll see you next time.
This is John Chen, the author of the Amazon #1 hot new release, Engaging Virtual Meetings. I personally want to say thank you for listening to the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. It is my passion to help you eliminate bad virtual meetings. Make sure that you click subscribe so that you can get the latest episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast with all of the latest ideas. Hey, I want to meet you. If you want to talk about a virtual meeting challenge, or if you want to be the next guest on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast, just go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet. That's engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet, MEET, and find your best time to meet up. Thank you, and I look forward to engaging with you online.